Today's programme is about a cup of tea, but please don't think you can relax. Export and import are the real topics of this unit. The cups are made at this porcelain factory, and Royal Worcester porcelain is exported all around the world. The tea comes from Sri Lanka, India and China and is imported by Twinings of Hampshire. We hear more about the export and import business of these two 300-year-old firms. And Troubleshooter thinks he could be a successful export-import merchant. Royal Worcester tableware and decorative figures are sold all over the world. Jackie Irons talks about the export business.
Royal Worcester is a company that exports to virtually every country of the world. We have a key market export policy, which means that over the last few years we've identified markets that we feel have the greatest potential. These markets are America, Canada, Japan, Korea, Germany, Italy and France. Within the export department, we have sales managers for various areas, and I'm actually the export sales manager for Italy, Germany and France. I speak Italian, French and German, which is probably the reason why I'm responsible for those countries.
Diciamo che il suo ordine è pronto, non lo so quando.
In my 3 markets in Europe, I work with agents, commercial agents. That means that the commercial agents have a team of representatives who sell Royal Worcester, and we pay the agent commission on the sales that they make. In countries further afield, like Japan and America and Korea, we use a distributor rather than an agent. A distributor is a company that actually buys the product from us, stores it in their warehouse, and then they sell to the customer. An important part of my role is market research. In other words, it's testing new ideas and new product designs with my customers, with our retailers in Germany, Italy and France. So when I go on a trip to these countries, I'll take a design portfolio with me. This is actually the design portfolio I took on a recent trip. So in here we have future designs, ideas for designs that will be launched next year. And I would take these and ask customers their opinion on them, because each of the countries in Europe has very different tastes regarding tableware.
First, some facts. What is Jackie Irons' job?
I'm actually the export sales manager for Italy, Germany and France.
She's the export sales manager for Italy, Germany and France. And what languages does she speak?
I speak Italian, French and German.
She speaks Italian,
Buongiorno,
French
Antonella.
and German.
Buongiorno,
And now some vocabulary. How do they decide which countries to export to?
We have a key market export policy.
The company has a key market export policy. That is to say, a plan of action concerning the most important markets they export to. And how do they sell their goods?
In my 3 markets in Europe, I work with agents, commercial agents.
They work with agents.
And we pay the agent commission on the sales that they make.
And they pay the agent commission. That's a percentage on the value of the sales they make. But in other countries, further away, they use a distributor. What does that mean?
A distributor is a company that actually buys the product from us.
A distributor is a company that buys the product and then sells it independently. An important part of Jackie's job is market research.
In other words, it's testing new ideas and new product designs with my customers, with our retailers.
Testing new ideas and product designs.
Il s'appelle Monsieur Boyer.
Another linguist, Ros Whitfield, is the customer service manager.
When we receive an order, perhaps by fax or by telephone, we have to put the order onto our own order forms and use our own product codes. The order is then sent to another department who put the order onto the computer and give it a computerised order number. Every order is sent to the production manager, who gives the order a lead time, or sometimes this is called a schedule date. This is the date when we expect to dispatch the goods to the customer. The lead time is usually 4 to 6 weeks. The goods for that order are manufactured in the factory, and they are then packed in the warehouse in special strong cartons to ensure that the goods are not sent out and received broken. An invoice is raised in the shipping department and this is sent out to the customer. Most customers have an open account or credit facility. This means that they can pay for their goods within 30 or 60 days of the date of the invoice. In some countries, such as Italy and Germany, customers pay into a Royal Worcester Bank in their country. In some countries outside Europe, where payment is less certain, it is necessary for the customers to pay by a letter of credit. This means of payment is very sure.
Let's look at some of that vocabulary.
Customer service, can I help you? We have to put the order onto our own order forms and use our own product codes.
They put the order onto their own order forms and use their own product codes. The production manager gives the order a lead time or schedule date. What does that mean?
This is the date when we expect to dispatch the goods to the customer.
It's the date when they expect to dispatch the goods to the customer. And what about payment?
Most customers have an open account or credit facility.
An open account or credit facility. This means they have 30 days or sometimes more to pay for the goods.
In some countries outside Europe, where payment is less certain, it is necessary for the customers to pay by a letter of credit.
A letter of credit is a very sure method of payment. It's all very well to have fine china teacups, but you must have something equally fine to put in them. Sid Mumford is a taster for the firm of Twinings, who produce speciality teas. Today, Sid introduces a new trainee to the business.
Well, Barrington, this is where this is Twinings' tasting room, where we do all the tasting of Twining products. We buy, blend and quality control everything except coffee.
How do you buy your teas?
We have buying agents in the major tea-producing countries who would buy the teas that we have selected.
So which countries do you import your tea from?
We import from North India, Sri Lanka, Kenya, China.
How do you choose which teas you want from these countries?
We receive samples from our buying agent. These are tasted and tested.
And then you send a buying order?
Yes, we then place an order with our agent.
And that's it, is it?
Absolutely not. Twinings are famous for their speciality teas, and the quality of these blends must be maintained and consistent. Here at Twinings, all the tasters are blenders and buyers, and it's our job to maintain the consistency of the blends throughout. We have a QA department,
QA?
quality assurance, with some fairly sophisticated machinery available to us, but it's the taster's decision whether a tea passes or doesn't pass.
Let's take a close-up on some of that. Some vocabulary to do with choosing and buying.
We receive samples from our buying agent. These are tasted and tested.
They receive samples from their buying agent. The samples are tasted and tested. And what happens next?
We then place an order with our agent.
They place an order with their agent. The trainee thinks that's the end of the story, but Sid quickly corrects him.
And that's it, is it?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. There's the question of quality.
Twinings are famous for their speciality teas, and the quality of these blends must be maintained.
The quality of the blends must be maintained. How do they do that?
We have a QA department,
QA?
quality assurance.
They have a quality assurance department with some sophisticated machinery. But note what Sid says.
But it's the taster's decision whether a tea passes or doesn't pass.
So, once you've placed an order, what happens next?
Well, if we're successful, we'd receive a contract document which we would put onto our computer system, and from there on in, John would take over, and I'll take you through so he can explain.
Now it's time for the trainee to meet John Scarhill, the import administrator.
Perhaps you'd explain the paperwork to him.
Well, the next stage is documentation, and that's where I take over.
So is there a lot of paperwork?
Enough. Let's go through it in order. First, we receive a contract from our agent for the teas we purchased the previous week. This one's from a company in Sri Lanka and shows a number of different tea standards at different prices.
Who is responsible for shipping the consignment?
Our supplier or agent, he must see that everything is in order and send us the necessary documents.
So all of this happens in India or China or wherever?
That's right. Once the tea's been bought and shipped, and just before the ship arrives, we receive the documentation.
I'll never remember what all of these are.
You'll get used to them fairly quickly. The most important is the bill of lading. It's a receipt for the container by the shipping company, an identification of the cargo, and a document of entitlement to collect the container at the port. In other words, if you have this document, you can collect our consignment of tea, whoever you are. So we keep this in a safe place until the ship arrives.
OK. What else?
There's a certificate of insurance. We generally raise that here. And, of course, we've got the invoice from the supplier.
Right. How do you pay?
If it's an overseas agent, we usually pay by bill of exchange, sometimes called a bank draft.
What's this one for?
That's a certificate of origin. It shows details of the consignment, the exporter's name, the importer's name, that's us, Twinings. There's no import duty, no tax on tea these days, so a certificate of origin is not strictly necessary. It's still sent to us as a kind of tradition, but we don't use it anymore.
Now, let's look at some of that again. First, focus on language forms, time clauses using once.
Once you've placed an order, what happens next?
Once you've placed your order, what happens next?
Once the tea's been bought and shipped, and just before the ship arrives, we receive the documentation.
Once the tea has been bought and shipped, they receive the documentation.
For the teas.
John Scahill's job involves a lot of documentation or paperwork.
Different prices. First, we receive a contract from our agent for the teas we purchased the previous week.
They receive a contract for the teas they purchased the previous week. And what other documents are there? The most important is the bill of lading, a certificate of insurance, and of course there's the invoice, the bill they have to pay for the tea. And how do they pay for the tea?
If it's an overseas agent, we usually pay by bill of exchange, sometimes called a bank draft.
Usually by bill of exchange, or a bank draft as it is sometimes called. One further document is the certificate of origin. It's not strictly necessary because there is no import duty, no tax to pay on tea these days. It was not always like that, as you will soon see. The Twining family have been importing tea into Britain for nearly 300 years. The business was started by Thomas Twining, and today it is managed by Sam Twining.
Thomas Twining is a fascinating story. As a young man, he'd worked as an apprentice for an East India merchant, really an importer who was buying his tea from the East India Company, who had the monopoly to trade with China. And young Thomas must have learned his product knowledge and how to taste tea working for the East India merchant.
Tea was heavily taxed in the 18th century, and only very rich people could afford to drink it. But Thomas Twining saw a business opportunity.
At the age of 31, he goes off and buys a coffee house. He could have bought any one of 2,500. He chooses one very carefully, close to where the aristocracy were building their new homes after the Fire of London. And so he got to a position where he had a coffee house, introduces tea, which he knows only the aristocracy can afford to buy because it's so heavily taxed, and has it in a position very close to where they're living. That was a very clever move.
With the help of modern technology, the Twinings' family business is still selling tea, but not just in Britain.
When we've bought it and it comes in from China, India, Sri Lanka, wherever, we blend it and we pack it. And it is all controlled from here by our 7 tea tasters. Then we will re-export it around the world. In fact, 90 countries buy tea from us. It's terribly important to have a good teapot. But even more important is to have that very fine, thin, bone china cup, because drinking a good tea is like drinking a fine wine. And the thinner the cup is on your lip, the better the taste of the tea will be. So Royal Worcester and Twinings work well together.
The Royal Worcester Porcelain Factory also has a long history. It is called Royal because it received a royal warrant. Rachel John, the marketing manager, explains.
In 1788, King George III and his wife Queen Charlotte came to the city of Worcester. They visited the porcelain factory and they actually decided that they would like a service made for themselves. They were so delighted when they received the service that they granted the company the royal warrant the following year.
To be a successful exporter, the company must carefully research its different markets around the world with their different cultures.
So there are many cases where we have developed specific products for specific markets. For example, if I were to show you this dish here, now this isn't something that perhaps you would see a great deal of in the UK. It's called a shell dish, and this was specifically produced for Japan, for the wedding market, because brides in Japan, they give their guests a present for attending the wedding. So this little cup is actually for the Arabic market. Obviously the coffee they drink there is very, very strong and they only want to drink a little at a time. So we actually produce these very small Arabic coffee cups, and as you notice, there are no handles.
exporter sends his goods by ship, the master of the ship issues a bill of lading. The bill of lading is a receipt for the goods. It is also the proof of ownership of the goods. If the importer wants to claim the consignment when it arrives in the UK, he must have this document to show he is entitled to it. The bill of lading shows the name of the shipper or exporter. It shows the name of the consignee, the person or company that the consignment is going to, and it gives the details of the consignment. Black tea from Sri Lanka. With this document, the importer may go to the port and receive the goods.
Okay, your invoice,
Thank you very much.
your delivery note,
Thank you.
and your export papers.
Marvellous.
Good luck.
Very, very thanks.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Goodbye. Today, I am off to France on business. I thought I would try my hand at the export trade. And what am I going to export, I hear you ask? Wine. English wine. And I have 12 cases of excellent white English wine right here in the back of Molly, my van. Yes, I am going to export English wine to France. So, off we go! Oh, customs. How exciting. Good morning, officer. I think I have all the relevant paperwork, my invoice, my green card, my delivery note, my export certificate.
Really,
and,
sir, that's very interesting. Now, would you mind moving along, please, sir? And I'll see you on your return journey.
Right.
Yes, I look forward to that.
Farewell, England, farewell. Goodbye. And now to business. Good morning, my dear sir. Do you know how many gallons of wine this country imports each year?
I've no idea.
I'll tell you. 5 million gallons, or litres, every year. And most of that wine comes from France. Isn't that amazing?
Amazing.
And you know, I think it's about time we did something about it. And as I'm in the export trade, I thought I'd hop over to France today to test the market in English wine. Here, I have a sample, and I tempt you to a bottle at a special export price.
No thanks. I don't drink.
Would you be interested in a job with Troubleshooter International as a sales representative on a commission basis?
No. Look, could you just go away? I'm trying to enjoy the view.
How will my customers pay me?
I don't know. Go away.
But it's an important question. I mean, will it be a letter of credit or a bank draft or in sterling, in euros? I must look it up sometime, actually. And I fully intend to maximise my revenue today, you know. On the way back, I shall become an importer. And do you know what I'm going to import? Cheese.
Cheese?
Yes, cheese. Do you know how many pounds of cheese this country? So, bonjour, la belle France, eh?
Ah oui, oui. Moi, je suis très bien. À votre bonne santé.
I think the French really like this wine. Now, For a bottle in England, you would have to pay £4, I think. So I'd better do them a special price, make a little profit. So, my dear sir, would you like to buy some wine? It is selling at £10 a bottle.
Non, merci. Pas ce prix-là. Beaucoup trop cher.
Oh, no.
Beaucoup trop cher. Merci pour une autre fois. Oh, au revoir.
Well... Oh, perhaps I was a little greedy with the price. But never mind. On to plan 2.
Bill, I can see him. He's coming through now. Right.
Oh, no. The customs. The wine. I've forgotten the paperwork.
Would you just step out of the vehicle, please, sir, and open the back for me? Thank you.
I can explain everything, officer. You see, the wine I have in the back of the van is English wine. I exported it this morning, and unfortunately I wasn't able to make a sale today, and so I'm importing it again. Is there any duty to pay?
Would you open the back for me, please, sir? There is no duty payable on the wine, sir. But perhaps you'd be kind enough to let me see inside that briefcase. Open it, please.
Oh, you don't want to see in the briefcase?
Stand aside, please. Whoa! Cheese!
Yes, the very best quality.
Stop! Right, you. On your way. And don't let me catch you here again. I don't know, wasting Her Majesty's Customs Officer's time. I'll give you troubleshooter.
That's all we have time for on the subject of importing and exporting. You will find more explanations of vocabulary and grammar, as well as exercises, in your student's book. The next programme in the series will be about the transportation of goods. Goodbye till then.